Forehands and backhands make up a vast majority of our shots in pickleball. So if you want to be the best possible player, you need to be good at both. Odds are, if you're watching this, you probably prefer one over the other, and that's totally fine. Most players, for instance, like their forehand more. In this video though, I'm gonna take you through the technique and strategy of both so that you can improve your weakness and make your stronger side even better. At the end of the video, I'm gonna give you a tutorial on how to use the two-handed backhand. So if you've been thinking about trying it, make sure to watch till the end. The shot could literally transform your game if you use it right. Helping me today, I have my little brother Keaton and Drew. Before we get started though, we need to go over the different types of forehands and backhands that we can use. From the back of the court, we have our drives and our drops. And from the front of the court, we have our dinks and our volleys. In this video, we're gonna focus mainly on our shots from the back, but we'll cover our shots from the front of the court too. To start, I wanna go through drives. Real quick though, guys, if you're new to our channel and trying to improve at pickleball, make sure to subscribe. All our videos are designed to get you better fast. As a reminder, drives are when we hit low and hard from the back of the court. If you're a newer player, odds are you use drives on a majority of your shots from the back of the court. But even as your game progresses, drives will always be an awesome way to be aggressive while you're back. All right, guys, let's get into the technique of the forehand drive. Every drive starts off with your footwork. So whenever you're waiting for the ball, you should be facing the court like this. But the second you realize you're gonna hit a forehand drive, it's your job to turn sideways like I just did there. So your first step to hitting any drive is to turn sideways the second you recognize that you're gonna hit the ball on that side of your body. And from this position, this is where you're gonna move around. The ball is never gonna come right to you, so you need to make sure that you move your feet to get exactly where you need to be to contact the ball right here. So let me show you how that looks. And you notice there I actually backpedaled, so I went backwards to hit my forehand over here, which is totally fine. A lot of players favor their forehand over their backhand, so they'll actually do what's called an inside-out forehand and backpedal out of the way so that they can take their forehand instead of their backhand. All right, another aspect of the forehand drive that I get so many questions about is what grip should I use? So there's really two grips you can use on the forehand drive. The first is the continental, and the second is the eastern grip. To find our grip, all we need to do is take our index knuckle. So we're going to take where our pointer finger connects to our hand. So I have a line right here, right on that joint, okay? And we're gonna line it up with certain notches of the paddle, okay? So for an eastern grip, all I need to do is line up that knuckle with this big black notch in the middle. See how it's lined up perfectly? That's my eastern grip. And I'd say the eastern grip is better for most players on the forehand drive, okay? If you want the continental grip, all you're gonna do is line up this knuckle with this red notch here. So the angled one to the side of the big black notch. Like I said though, the eastern grip is probably the best for most players on the forehand drive. All right, so we've got our grip, we've got our footwork, we're in this position and we're ready to hit the ball. The next part of our swing that we need to worry about is our take back, or how I take my paddle back so that I can accelerate it towards the ball. And usually what you do for your take back is what's called a loop. So a loop is a C motion where I go from here to hit the ball. And this C motion gives me momentum, which translates into power. Let me show you how that looks. If you're just getting started, you might just take your paddle straight back and then hit the ball, which is fine, but advanced players generally have this loop because they get more natural power that way. The key to making this loop work, guys, is to be loose, because if you're tight, you don't really get momentum from it. So if your arm and your hand are loose, you can actually use that loop to get more power because you're gonna have more speed as you're going towards the ball. The most important part of your swing for power though is 100% your rotation through the ball. So when I'm preparing to hit my shot, I'm generally sideways like this, and I do my loop, but as I'm accelerating towards the ball, I want to rotate my shoulders and hips so that I'm facing towards the net by the end of my shot. And look at this motion here gives me a ton of power. See, I'm not even moving my arm, I'm only moving my shoulders. I can still hit it pretty hard like that. So put it all together and it looks like this. And if you notice, on those shots, I hit what was called topspin, where I roll up the back of the ball and it spins as if it's rolling away from me. And what this does is it sucks the ball down so you can hit with more power and the ball won't go out. All you need to do to get topspin is when you're doing your take back, drop your paddle a little bit below the ball. Then as you're accelerating towards the ball, bring it up like this. So you start your swing from below the ball and you finish from above the ball, slow motion. That gives me topspin. So I'm rolling up the back of that ball which gives me the ability to get more power, and it also makes the ball dip at my opponent's feet a little more. So, looking at our backhand, we're gonna go over the one-hander. Like I said, I'm doing the two-hander at the end, but most people have a one-hander, so that's what we're gonna start off with. The footwork is exactly the same. So the second you see the ball is coming to this side of your body, you're gonna turn your shoulders and get sideways to hit the ball. And I recommend using a continental grip here. I'm actually a little bit high on my continental too, so I'm a little bit more towards this side notch, but I'm still using a continental. And when it comes to your take back, on a one-hander, I don't really recommend using a loop like your forehand. I would take your paddle straight back and try to point it directly behind you. I see way too many players who prepare for their one-hander like this. They don't turn their shoulders or hips, and they point the paddle back like this using their wrist. You want to turn your shoulders and your hips, have a straight wrist, and point your paddle back directly behind you so you can hit the ball like this. By doing this, it really simplifies the stroke. All you have to do is move forward and make contact with the ball out in front. If I'm face forward like this, I have to fling my paddle across my body, which just makes it really hard to make a clean contact. So turn your shoulders and get that same rotation that we talked about on our forehand, where we're facing the net by the end of the stroke. Topspin on the one-hander is a little bit harder, but it's the same idea as our forehand, where I start my swing a little bit below the ball, and then I finish above the ball, which looks like this. So I'm brushing up on the back of the ball, which makes it roll up and gets that nice topspin. Like I said earlier though, a lot of people don't like their backhand, and it's usually because of one of these three mistakes. One, you have the wrong grip. If you're trying to hit your one-hander with an Eastern grip, there's zero chance it's ever gonna be good. You need to be somewhere near the continental if you wanna have a good one-hander. Two, you're making contact with the ball with a bent arm, which looks like this. So there, I'm hitting the ball more out in front of me rather than to my side. It just makes it really hard to be accurate. When you're making contact with your one-hander, your arm should be not completely straight, but almost straight. That just makes it a lot easier to extend through the ball and have more accuracy. And the third reason is what I said before, where you don't turn your shoulders. So remember, you want to turn your shoulders and get that paddle pointing backwards before every shot, like this. So now that we know the technique of how to hit the drive, we need to think about when to hit them and where to hit them. So the best time to go for a drive is on an easier shot. So a shorter ball, which means that it's closer to the net, and preferably a higher ball too, which looks something like this. So when the ball is closer to the net, that gives your opponent less time to react. So it makes the drive more effective. And when it's higher, you have a better angle over the net so that you can hit it harder and you don't need to hit it up. So a shorter, higher ball is our best time to go for it. On a deeper, harder ball like this, definitely not the best time to go for a drive because your opponent has more time to react, and it's just harder to be accurate when it's coming at you so fast. In terms of where we hit them, the main thing we want to focus on is keeping the ball low. So we want to aim our drives about 6 inches over the net. That one was even a little bit low, but if you aim too close to the net, you're going to risk missing into the net. So I think 6 inches is a good buffer so that it still stays low, but you're not going to miss in the net too often. Looking at specific targets, if your opponents are both at the net, one of the best places to go is right down the middle, because a lot of the time they just can't decide quickly enough who should take that ball, and usually that's where the biggest gap on the court is. Also, if you're hitting this on a third shot right after you serve, a good place to target is the returning player as they're coming in, because a lot of the time you can get it right at their feet like I just did, which gives you the ability to move forward because they have to hit up. To cap off our drive section though, I want to talk about a few places that people go wrong. The first is that they don't hit any topspin. I'm telling you, if you're hitting your drives without topspin as hard as you can, just wailing at the ball, they're gonna sail. Remember, topspin makes the ball drop faster. So if you like using your drives, I highly encourage you to try to develop topspin so that you can keep hitting the ball hard, but it'll actually drop in. If you're not hitting topspin, your opponents are gonna realize this, and they're gonna get out of the way and let your ball sail long. The other mistake, and this applies to all ground strokes, is that players neglect their footwork. So they essentially just expect the ball to come to them. They're not active with their feet. They don't get in the right position. And as a result, they don't hit quality shots. So remember how I said, the second you see the ball coming to one side of your body, you immediately turn, and in this position, you take as many adjustment steps as you need to prepare and rotate towards the shot. Now guys, we're gonna get into drops. In the long term, drops are gonna be way more important than drives to playing at a higher level. So even if you don't think you can do them now, make sure to understand the right technique so that they develop properly as you improve. And if you're liking this video so far, make sure to hit that like button and comment whether you prefer your forehand or backhand. I'm curious to see if any of you are like me and prefer your backhand. So as a recap, drops are where I try to hit the ball in the kitchen from the back of the court like I'm doing here. And the goal of the drop is to make your opponent hit up on the ball. So you see there, I was able to get it down at Keaton's feet, and that forces him to have to hit up on the ball. So on a drive, if I'm hitting it hard, he actually will be able to hit the ball straight and in some cases down. But with the drop, you're forcing your opponent to have to hit up, which gives you the ability to move forward. Let's see how that looks. So you see there, I got that ball nice and low right at his feet, which forced him to hit up, which makes it a lot easier for me to move forward and get to the kitchen, where I'm in a better position than when I'm back. Looking at our technique on our drops though, the first thing that we need to think about is our grip. For both the forehand and backhand guys, I recommend using the continental like I have here. And there's a lot of similarities too on our footwork to our drives when we're doing drops. So the second you see it's coming to your forehand or backhand, you turn sideways and you prepare for the ball like that. So if it's coming from my backhand, it'll look like this. And a forehand will look like this. So see how I'm sideways? You don't want to be hitting your drop facing the court. Where it starts to get different though is our motion. So we don't really have a loop or a big take back on our drops. The drop is a shot of accuracy and not power. So we don't really need to be doing all this rotation and loop stuff that we do on our drives. With our motion on our drops, it's very simple and compact. So a forehand drop looks like this. I'm literally starting my swing here, a little bit out in front of my body, and I'm just going straight forward towards my target. Nothing fancy here. It's literally the simplest I can possibly make the stroke. It's okay if you go a little bit behind your body with your take back, but know that a big take back is meant to give you more power. So it's actually counterintuitive to have a big take back on your drop. Generally, you just want to take it to about right here and then end your swing about right here. Very important thing to keep in mind too is that you don't want to be using barely any wrist on this shot. So if I'm using wrist, that's going to give me more power and less control. So I want to isolate my shoulder as the sole point of power on this stroke, which looks like this. See, I'm literally just hinging at my shoulder to hit the ball, which gives me the most possible accuracy. The same goes for the backhand too. No wrist, very simple stroke. Got my continental grip. I'm solely using my shoulder to hit this shot. So good drops look just like this. All I'm doing is I got that simple compact motion, getting sideways with my feet, but I don't need that extreme rotation that I have on my drives where I'm going like this. I'm just really turning sideways, using my shoulder for most of my power. A few more. Tough one, but we made it. The last aspect of our drops we need to worry about is spin. So you can do topspin drops like this, where I'm spinning up behind the ball like I do on my drives, or you can do slice drops like this, where you're cutting behind the ball. If you're just getting started, I honestly wouldn't really focus on spin though. I would just use the compact motion without wrist, and whatever spin you get should be fine. So you can be successful with both the slice and the topspin drop. So if you're just learning it, don't focus on spin, just focus on using the right technique. As you get better and more comfortable with it though, know that the topspin drop's a little bit more effective because it's more aggressive. That said, the slice drop still works super well and you see pros use it all the time. If you guys want to go deeper into drops, I have a full video on that. But now I'm going to go into 3 hacks to hit better ground strokes, which are our shots from the back, in any situation. The first one is that whenever you're hitting a ground stroke, whether that be a drive or a drop, you want to do what you can with your footwork to get directly behind the ball so that you can move forward through it towards your target. Ideally, you never want to be falling backwards or to the side while you hit the ball. So let me show you some good examples. So here I'm hitting my drop, and see how I always set myself up right behind the ball so I'm moving forward through it? If I was going like this, moving backwards, I lose essentially all my accuracy. Imagine you're shooting a basketball and you're falling to the side. It just gets way more complicated and hard to be accurate and get the shot clean through the rim. The next hack is that you always want to be waiting at the back of the court with your continental grip, since most of the shots you hit back here, you use that on, right? Your forehand drop, you have a continental grip. Your backhand drop, you have a continental grip. And your backhand drive, you also use a continental grip. So really just the forehand, if you're using an Eastern, is the only shot you don't have that continental grip on your drive. So you might as well wait in that continental grip so you can react as fast as possible for most of your shots. And if you need to switch to Eastern for a forehand drive, you can do that pretty quickly. And the third hack, guys, is the second you see you're getting a forehand or a backhand, you want to turn your shoulders immediately. So you don't want to do it leisurely and slow. Second I see I'm getting a forehand, I'm sideways in this position so that I can focus on getting to the ball. I don't want to be gradually turning my shoulders as I'm going to the shot. You want to turn your shoulders immediately, then hit the ball. So here's an example of that. Get those shoulders turned right away. Don't waste any time. And guys, later in the video, we're going to go through some full court examples of all the shots we just went through. First though, I want to show you how our forehands and backhands change when we're at the kitchen. This section is going to be quick, so pay close attention. So whenever I'm at the kitchen, I generally want to be using my continental grip on every single shot. So whether it's a volley or a dink, you're using continental because with the continental grip, I can go side to side without changing my grip, so I can react faster, which I need to be able to when I'm so close. The next thing is that when I'm hitting my shots up here, I don't want to turn to the side like I do from back there. I just don't have enough time to do that, so almost every shot up here is hit with my feet square to the court like this. And the footwork up here is also different. So when I'm moving side to side, I don't want to take a bunch of little steps like I do from the back. Generally, I'm just taking one big step in either direction while trying to stay square to the court. Generally, you don't want to cross over. So if I get pulled out to my backhand side, I don't want to do a crossover step like this. I'm better off taking a step out to the side with my outside foot. And when I look at my takebacks on these strokes, pretty much everything on my dinks and volleys occurs in front of my body. So it's very rare that I take a huge backswing on a dink or volley. Generally, everything's in front. Maybe on a really high volley, you can go for a little bit back here to get that power, but it doesn't happen very often. If you're interested in going deeper on volleys or dinks, I have full videos on both these topics. Now guys, we're gonna go through some full court examples that tie everything together. Oh. There I hit a short return that sat up a little bit, which gave Drew the opportunity to go for a drive, which I wasn't ready for. There, Keaton hit a really deep return, which made it more challenging for Drew to go for a drive, but he still did, which gave me an easy shot that I put away. There, Drew hit a great drop, which landed right in the kitchen, gave him the ability to move forward, but unfortunately he missed that speed up he just went for. There, Drew got another short return, which gave him the ability to go for that forehand drive. He took it right down the middle. Me and Keaton sort of hesitated as to who should have taken it, and we missed. There, Drew did a great job of coming in with that drop, and then we got into that dink battle there, which ended with me hitting a speed up, which I used to win the point. Now guys, we have finally made it to the moment you've all been waiting for, the two-handed backhand tutorial. The two-handed backhand can be better than the one-handed for a lot of players, but you have to know the right technique or it's literally impossible to do a good job with it. So it all starts with the grip. With your right hand, if you're a righty, this will be your left hand if you're a lefty, you want to have a continental grip. So I have a continental grip just like I do on most of my other shots with my right hand. And with my left hand, there's a few different things you can do. Because this paddle's grip isn't super long and I have wide hands, what I'm going to do is essentially put my finger on the bottom of the paddle like this, which actually forces me to have an Eastern grip. So you want to have an Eastern grip with your left hand. So if you remember what that looked like on the other side, you can simply copy it. But with most paddles, you're actually going to need to do a finger like this. Some people actually do a finger like this, but as long as you have your finger on the paddle, that actually forces you to have an Eastern grip. So some paddles have a longer handle where you can fit both hands on like this. See, I just line this knuckle up to the Eastern notch, and I'm good. But for most paddles, I'm going to want to put my finger on like this, make sure my hand's flat. That puts me in the best position to hit a two-hander. So a two-hander looks like this. A lot of similarities to my one-hander, but obviously I have my second hand on. So looking at our technique, you want to start your swing facing the court. The second you see it's coming to your backhand, you turn and get sideways just like on your one-hander. It's especially important that you turn though on your two-hander because it can be a little challenging to get your paddle back since you have two hands on it. From this position, you move towards the ball and we have the same exact rotation like we do on our forehand or our one-hander. So a few more examples. It's a very simple stroke. You want to make sure you get that paddle straight back just like we do on our one-hander, straight back like this. And you can use the two-hander on your dinks and volleys too, where the footwork's exactly the same as if you're dinking normally. You just have that second hand on, which some people think gives them a little more control. Volleys look like this. You'll see a lot of pros doing two-handed backhand volleys. The one downside of the two-hander is that there's less reach. So if you're trying it out and you're going from a one-hander, the first thing that you're gonna realize is that it's always gonna feel like you're too far away from the ball. So you have to get used to getting a little bit closer to the ball and doing a better job with your feet because you just don't have as much of an ability to reach out for far balls. If you think your partner needs to work on their ground strokes, make sure to send them this video. But if you want to go deeper into forehand and backhand volleys, watch this.